And ready, set, go. All right, so a couple technical difficulties there, but we've kind of, I think, ironed them all out, and I think we're good. So what we're going to do now is we're going to do that whole kind of big landscape project. I'm going to give you an example version of it. So we're going to try to employ all the little functions and things that we've done before, and we want to also kind of employ the artistic parts of it as we go. So this one's going to have a couple of maybe a little higher kind of caliber coding examples, but you can use this one and then take it further and further. So to start off with, I've already given my file a name. I called it landscape01, and then I made sure to go to save. So once you've saved it, then it'll turn on the autosave, and that's, trust me, you want to do that, particularly if we're starting to do things with loops. Next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put a comment in here at the beginning. I'm going to say this is going to be my landscape. I'm going to say who it's by. I'll even say what class this is for. So I'm going to say it's for Coding for R's, and I'll say 2019. So that's going to just kind of set me up for what I want to make sure I'm saving as I go, and it makes it easier to reference stuff later. Sometimes I change it in the file name. What we also want to do, just because I think it's really good form, is to say, here's the end of our setup function. These are all comments. Remember, the 2 slashes mean that you're in a comment. I'm going to say end draw. And you'll see later why this is kind of important as we do more and more functions. We have a lot more curly braces as we go. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to kind of think about how I'm going to lay these things out. And to do that, I want to make sure I include, the idea of our rule of thirds and how we do our composition and our layout for our drawing. We could start off really kind of easily by saying, let's make a rectangle. And if I made a rectangle that is maybe half the height and width of it, and right now if we look, you can see right here, it's 400 by 400 is our size, and maybe I should make that a little bit bigger for everybody. Let's make it a little bit bigger. Oh, I'm like looking in the menu especially over here. There makes a, let's do 20. So you can see right over here, I've got it's set up so it's 400 by 400, but if I'm going to do rule of thirds, 400 by 400 probably isn't the really ideal shape for it. And if I go ahead and I were to try to run this without having a partial error here, I would probably get it so that it just shows it's like as this gray square. And landscapes typically are really kind of stretched out. They kind of look for a much more, it's when you think about your paper, this is your portrait view, this will be your landscape view. So we want to make it in that kind of longer landscape. So rather than 11 by 8.5 like a piece of paper is, let's make the numbers easy on ourselves. So we'll make our width, let's make our width be 600, and we'll make our height be 300. That'll make our rule of thirds really simple. Just be like 200 by 100, and they're easily divisible by 3 is what I'm trying to say. So if I go ahead and I run that one, I should get a kind of more stretched out. And I think that's going to work out better. I think that'll definitely work out better in the long run. All right, so we have that one in place. Let's now do create maybe just a rectangle so we can kind of get the feel for where we are. If I were to now move over and maybe try to make it so that my land at the bottom of my landscape and then have a lot of sky at the top, that gives me kind of room to put bigger objects. That's the approach I'm going to take. I'm going to sort of try to make it so I have the bottom third is going to be the grass, so to speak. So I'll say for my rectangle, I'm going to start my X. Remember, rectangle is X, Y, the starting top left point and the bottom right point. And so if I say 0 on the left and then I go down 200, and then all the way across will be I want to go the full width. So I can use the width built-in variable. And then if I say I want to go down that same amount. So if I were to just make a simple rectangle, in theory. Let's see. There we go. So now it's making that rectangle fill in this whole area. And you can see there's still the stroke is on. You can see that little line, black line there. So I can turn that off. So let's say no stroke. So remember that no stroke command. And if you can't quite remember what these commands are, don't forget there's an easy from the help menu. You can go to the reference, and then you can go and look these particular commands up. And if you just come in here and you say stroke, it'll easily show you which one you're looking for. So I often just do a command or control F, depending if I'm on a Mac or a PC. Type in stroke, and you'll go ahead and you'll be able to find those commands. Here you can see there's a stroke and a no stroke command right there that'll give you good, very good syntax for it. All right. So jumping back, if I go ahead and I run that again, I should get it without the black line. But I probably want my grass to be maybe a different color. So here I could say my fill, I can change my fill, and remember all the colors are RGB. So if I wanted to put in a color here where I wanted to say no red, all green, and then blue, I could do that. And when I run that, you'll see I get this kind of iridescent kind of green. So that's probably not the bright green I want, but in order to get the color I really want for this, I'm probably going to need to kind of adjust it. I don't want full bright on, full color. So if I bring it down, maybe just go to 100 and play that, I'll probably get a much darker kind of like forest green or hunter green kind of color, which is definitely one that I kind of would associate better with a pretty landscape. Now, there's lots of other ways we can go about kind of drawing this green, and you know, we'll get into that a little bit more once we do our sky and our tones in our sky. So that one right now that we have that, I'm going to go ahead and give this kind of a name for this section. And by using comments, because as we build up different layers to this particular code, we want to make sure that we have lots of clear comments that kind of tell us how we want to add each of these bits. So here I'm going to go ahead and say, I'm going to put in a comment, and this comment's going to say, I don't know, the ground, or the green ground, I'll say, for now. So I can associate the color and that with it. So that'll get me started for that. If I want to go ahead and do the background, maybe the background, I could easily make it be a sky blue kind of color. So remember, all the colors and the backgrounds and the fills, they're all R, G, and B values, and they're all from 0 to 255. Oops, 255. So if I want it to be no red and no green and we'll say all blue, this is the color you would get as your background. So when we go ahead and run that, you'll see it's a very kind of bright royal blue, but it's probably not the blue, excuse me, that you probably want. We'll have to try to take that out in editing. But if I were to kind of maybe tone that down a little bit, I can get it to be a darker kind of blue, but I might want to then kind of adjust my colors. Now, remember, anytime you're doing any colors, and I think in this particular case, when you're doing the landscape, you're really going to want to kind of go back, take a look at all the different types of ways you can access color. I think in this case, I'm going to make it be more of a sunset. So I'm going to kind of challenge our example. And here, if I do this one, it's going to be kind of a little bit more of a lavendery color to start off with. But hold on. We'll do, let's check out our hex color or our color picker. I think if you just look in Google, color picker, I think it will give you a, if I can wait, there we go. So here it's actually a built-in kind of color picker that's pretty cool. It actually gives you values for colors in a couple different ways. Now, what I want to be able to do here is I want to be able to kind of pick the color I want, and then I can look down here in the corner and I can say, hey, look, I'm actually able to get the RGB values of it. Or if we were doing one of the other sets, we could use a hex value or a hue saturation and kind of the brightness values. But for right now, we really want just these. So I'm going to snag these three, I'm going to copy it, and then I'm going to paste those ones out into here. And now I've got my values that are just exactly what I picked, and it should show up here on the top. So it gives you a nice way to kind of pick those colors. So that gets you started on the very, very beginning part. For the land, gives you a little bit of sky, but let's now, our next part, let's do this. We are going to use a for loop to actually kind of create a gradient. And we've kind of been playing around with this idea before, but let's use a gradient now.